imagine this scenario. A big soccer match is coming up. Austin FC versus Los Angeles FC. It's at Q2 Stadium in Austin, July 5th, 2025.
Yeah, big game.
And you're probably thinking, okay, who's going to win? Standard question.
Sure.
But what if I told you there's this whole hidden world of really advanced data science, AI, working away behind the scenes. And they're not just trying to pick the winner, they're trying to predict the exact score, like the most likely one, even with all the randomness in sports.
Right, trying to quantify that uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
Exactly. So this deep dive today, it's not really just about the match. It's more about pulling back the curtain on these incredibly sophisticated models.
Yeah, how they actually predict real-world events like this.
We've got this comprehensive match analysis report we're going through, and it just shows you layer after layer of tech used to forecast these games.
We'll kick things off with the basic stats, the groundwork, then we'll build up through some advanced statistical methods, and then dive into a whole suite of cutting-edge AI models. Really powerful stuff.
And then simulations. You mentioned simulations.
Yep, thousands of them to paint this full probabilistic picture of what might happen. Not just one outcome, but the whole range.
So you're basically getting a shortcut today, a way to understand the brains behind modern sports prediction.
That's a good way to put it.
It's honestly a journey that might change how you think about forecasts and data in general. Prepare for some aha moments, I think.
Let's get into it.
All right. Let's start with the raw ingredients, the absolute basics, the match itself. Austin FC hosting Los Angeles FC, July 5th, 2025, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Q2 Stadium in Austin.
Got it.
And even the weather, right, they factor that in. Forecast is mainly clear, maybe around 79 Fahrenheit, light winds, bit of humidity, like 65%.
And those details, they seem small, but they become really crucial data points for the models.
Yeah, I was thinking that. And then there's the players, always key. We have an injury report.
Who's out?
For Austin FC, Daniel Pereira, midfielder, he's out with a hip injury, and Mikkel Dessler, defender, muscle injury.
Okay, 2 key players potentially.
And for LAFC, Ryan Raposo, midfielder, ankle injury, and Lorenzo Della Valle, defender, knee injury.
Right, so both teams missing players in midfield and defense. That's important context.
Definitely.
And what's really, fascinating here is seeing how these simple details, the weather, who's fit, who's not, they're all meticulously gathered.
Yeah.
And they become these vital inputs for these much bigger, much more complex systems. It's way beyond just a gut feeling now.
Totally. It's all about quantifiable data, isn't it?
Exactly. Actionable data.
So we've got these basics down. How do we even start turning this stuff into, like, an actual prediction? Where do the models begin?
Well, the first real building block we usually look at is the ELO rating.
ELO, like in chess.
Exactly like in chess. Many people know it from there. It's this dynamic rating system. Measures team strength.
Dynamic?
It adjusts after every single match. Based on the result, yeah, but also crucially on how strong the opponent was.
Ah, okay. So it accounts for who you beat, not just that you won.
Precisely. It's really effective at quantifying not just like raw strength, but also recent momentum and even the difficulty of a team's schedule, all statistically grounded.
That makes sense. So what are the ELO ratings telling us for this specific matchup?
Okay, so Austin FC, their ELO is around 1486, 0.178 to be precise.
They're 1486.
And Los Angeles FC, they're quite a bit higher, about 1544, 0.109.
Wow. Okay. So a noticeable difference there. LAFC comes in stronger, according to the ELO.
Yeah, based purely on historical performance as captured by this system, LAFC definitely has the edge going in.
Right. But, team strength is one thing. Predicting the goals, that feels like a whole different challenge. How do they tackle something that seems so random?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you forecast something like goals? That's where a technique called Poisson regression comes in.
Poisson regression. Okay,
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a statistical method, and it's actually ideal for predicting the number of times an event happens, like goals in a soccer match.
Yeah.
The core idea is that goals, they aren't totally random. They tend to follow a specific probability pattern, a distribution.
Okay.
So the model estimates the expected number of goals for each team, and it does that based on features we've already gathered.
Like team strength, ELO.
Exactly. ELO ratings, recent form, those injuries we mentioned, home field advantage, which is often huge in soccer, all that gets factored in.
Gotcha. So what does this Poisson model spit out for our Austin versus LAFC game?
Okay, the model predicts Austin FC, playing at home, to score 1.26 goals.
1.26, okay.
And Los Angeles FC, the away team, predicted to score 1.31 goals.
Huh. So really close, barely anything in it, according to that
It's
model.
very close, yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly favoring the OE team in terms of goal expectation, but only just.
Now, if we dig into the details of that Poisson model, the summary report,
Yeah.
what actually stands out? What's driving those numbers?
Good question. Looking at the home team, Austin, the model summary shows that this variable market probe home, it's got a strong coefficient, highly significant.
Market probe home. So, like the betting market's view.
Exactly. It suggests the initial betting odds, the market sentiment on a home win is a really strong predictor in the model. The home ELO rating is also significant, as you'd expect.
Okay, and for the away team, LAFC.
Similar story in some ways. Market prob away, so the market's view on an away win, is highly influential. And interestingly, market probotes.
BTTS, both teams to score.
Yeah. The market probability of both teams scoring also significantly impacts the predicted away goals.
Huh. So it really shows how much these models rely on both the underlying team strength, like ELO, but also kind of the wisdom of the crowd reflected in the betting market.
Absolutely. They're weaving together fundamental strength and market intelligence.
Okay, but predicting just one number, like 1.26 goals, it still feels a bit, I don't know, rigid. Sports are so unpredictable. How do they account for that randomness better?
That is precisely the issue. And it's why we then move on to the Bootstrapped Poisson prediction model.
Bootstrapped Poisson. Okay, sounds complex.
It's a clever technique. Instead of just running the Poisson model once on the original data,
Yeah.
it takes that data and sort of shuffles it up, resamples it hundreds of times, creates hundreds of slightly different versions of the training data set.
Okay, like creating slightly different realities.
Kind of. And then a separate Poisson model is trained on each one of those slightly different data samples.
Ah, so it's like having what, like 100 different mini models all giving their own prediction?
Exactly like that. A committee of models, you could say. And then, using the expected goal, counts from each of those hundreds of models.
What?
The system simulates thousands and thousands of potential match scorelines. It does this by drawing goals for each team based on the Poisson probability distribution defined by each mini-model.
Wow.
So by aggregating all those thousands of simulations, you don't just get one fixed prediction anymore. You get a whole distribution of possible outcomes, a much richer picture.
So how does that change the goal predictions for our game? Does it shift things much from the basic Poisson?
It adjusts them slightly. The Bootstrap model has home goals at 1.27, so barely changed,
Okay.
and away goals at 1.41. So a little bump up for LAFC compared to the simple model.
We're at 1.41 now.
But crucially, the Bootstrap model also gives us a 95% confidence interval for the goals.
A confidence interval meaning...
Meaning a range within which we're 95% confident the actual number of goals will fall. And for this match, it's actually the same for both teams, between 0 and 4 goals. 0.0, 4.0.
4 for both. Okay. So that interval is key, isn't it? It shows the realistic range.
Exactly. It captures that inherent uncertainty, that randomness we talked about, in a much more meaningful way than just a single number. Helps manage expectations.
Definitely. Okay, so we've covered ELO, Poisson, Bootstrapped Poisson, statistical foundations. Now, what about the AI? The machine learning, how does that layer on top?
Right. This is where we really bring in the heavy hitters, the brain trust, as you called it earlier.
Sure. Yeah.
We use a suite of really powerful ensemble machine learning models. Now, each one approaches the prediction problem slightly differently,
Okay.
but they're all designed to learn complex, nonlinear relationships in the data, things that simpler statistical models might miss.
Nonlinear, like interactions between factors.
Precisely. Or patterns that aren't just straight lines. Subtle stuff.
Got it. So tell us about these different AI brains. What are they and what does each one bring to the table?
Absolutely. So first up, we have random forest.
Okay, heard of that one. Lots of trees.
Exactly. Think of it like building a huge committee, maybe hundreds of individual decision trees.
Right.
Each tree gets trained on a slightly different random subset of the data and the available features. And then each tree votes on the outcome, home win, draw, away win. The random forest then combines all those votes. Its real strength is handling lots of features and being resistant to overfitting, meaning it doesn't just memorize the training data, it generalizes better. Good for noisy sports data.
Makes sense, like smoothing things out by averaging many opinions. And its prediction for Austin LAFC.
Random forest predicts an away win.
Okay, first AI vote goes to LAFC. What's next?
Next up is a gradient boosting machine, specifically XGBoost. This is a very popular and often very powerful algorithm.
XGBoost. Right. How is it different from random forest? Still trees.
Still uses decision trees, yes, but it builds them sequentially, one after the other.
Sequentially, how does that help?
Well, each new tree it builds specifically tries to correct the errors that the previous trees made.
Ah, so it's learning from its mistakes as it goes along, iteratively improving.
Exactly that. It gradually minimizes the prediction error, making it incredibly precise. You can pick up on subtle patterns, often a top performer in competitions.
Sounds powerful. And its verdict.
XGBoost also predicts an away win.
Okay, 2 for 2 on the away win. Interesting. What else is in the brain trust?
Then we have something a bit different. A multi-layer perceptron, or MLP. This is actually a type of neural network.
A neural network, like deep learning.
Yep, exactly. Inspired by how neurons connect in a brain. It uses layers of interconnected nodes, or neurons, and these layers allow it to learn really complex, highly nonlinear patterns. Things that even XGBoost might struggle with, like maybe subtle momentum shifts or the combined effect of multiple player absences.
So it can find even deeper patterns, like a deep learning signal booster.
That's a great analogy. It acts just like that. And its prediction for this match.
Let me guess.
Yes. An away win.
Okay, still consistent. One more.
One more main one in this suite, LightGBM.
LightGBM, similar to XGBoost.
It is. It's another gradient boosting framework, also using decision trees built sequentially to correct errors.
Okay, what's special about it?
It's known for being incredibly fast and efficient, especially with large data sets. It uses some clever techniques to speed up the training process without sacrificing much accuracy, often a key part of winning ensemble models.
Gotcha. Efficient and powerful. And its prediction, don't tell me.
You guessed it. LightGBM also predicts an away win.
Wow. Okay, that's genuinely fascinating. We have random forest, XGBoost, a neural network, LightGBM, very different approaches, technically speaking.
Very different underlying mechanics, yeah.
And they all pointing towards the same outcome, an away win for Los Angeles FC.
That consistency is definitely noteworthy. It increases confidence in the overall direction.
So connecting this all together then, you've got these individual powerful models and they're all agreeing. How does the system bring all that insight together? How does it arrive at one single most confident prediction?
That's the role of the final layer, the stacked ensemble model.
Stacked ensemble? Okay, sounds like it stacks them up.
Pretty much. It acts as a meta-learner, or a supermodel, if you like.
Meta-learn.
Yeah, it takes the predictions, actually, the probabilities for home win, draw, away win from all those individual base models we just discussed.
Okay, from Poisson, Bootstrapped, Random Forest, XGBoost, MLP, LightGBM.
Exactly. It takes all their outputs as its input, and then it learns the best way to combine them. It learns how much weight to give each model's prediction to get the most accurate final result.
So it's learning how to learn from the other models.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
It's figuring out which models are maybe better in certain situations, or how their combined insights lead to a better overall forecast.
Why is this stacking idea so powerful? Why not just pick the best individual model?
Because different models have different strengths and weaknesses. Some might be prone to certain biases, others might overfit slightly differently.
Right.
By stacking them, you combine their strengths and you often cancel out some of their individual weaknesses or biases. It averages out the errors in a sophisticated way.
Ah, I see.
This significantly reduces the risk of relying too heavily on one potentially flawed model, and it generally improves the stability and robustness of the prediction across all sorts of different match scenarios. The goal is always a more accurate, more reliable final number.
That makes a lot of sense. Combining perspectives for a stronger consensus. So what is the final consolidated verdict from this supermodel, the stacked ensemble?
Well, after weighing up all the inputs from the base models, the stacked ensemble also confidently predicts an away win for Los Angeles FC.
Okay, so the consensus holds strong right through the most advanced layer, away win.
That's the prediction from the classification models, yeah.
So we have all these complex models, statistics, AI, all pointing to an LAFC victory. But how does the system translate that prediction into something really tangible? Like, what are the chances of a specific score? 1-0, 2-1.
Right, that's the final piece of the puzzle. And it circles back to that question of randomness, doesn't it? Even with a predicted winner, how do we account for the sheer chance involved in any given match?
Yeah, exactly.
The answer there is the Monte Carlo simulation.
Monte Carlo. Heard of that in relation to, finance and risk.
Very much so. It's used widely. In this context, the module runs thousands upon thousands of simulated matches. Over 10,000 for this report.
10,000 simulated matches. Wow.
It uses the probabilistic goal outputs we got earlier, primarily from the ELO, the Poisson, and especially the Bootstrapped Poisson models. Remember those expected goals and the distributions?
Yeah, the 1.27 for Austin, 1.41 for LAFC, and the uncertainty around them.
Exactly. So for each of the 10,000 simulations, it randomly draws a number of goals for the home team and the away team from their respective Poisson distributions, using those expected goal figures as the average.
So it's like playing the game 10,000 times virtually based on the predicted goal probabilities.
Precisely. Each simulation generates a unique random scoreline. Maybe it's 1-1 in simulation 1, 0-2 in simulation 2, 3-1 in simulation 3, and so on.
Okay.
And each generated scoreline obviously results in a home win, a draw, or an away win. So by running 10,000 plus simulations and just counting how many times each outcome, home win, draw, away win, occurs, and how often each specific scoreline appears.
You can calculate the probabilities.
Exactly. You get really accurate estimates for the overall win-draw loss probabilities. But more than that, you can identify the most likely specific scorelines and even get distributions for things like the total number of goals in the match.
That's incredibly detailed. So for our Austin versus LAFC game, after running these 10,000 plus simulations, what did the Monte Carlo spit out as the most likely scores?
Okay, the simulation suggests that the single most probable scoreline is actually 0-1 to Los Angeles FC, an away win.
0-1. Okay, what's the probability on that?
That specific scoreline came up in about 12.68% of the simulations.
12.68%. Okay, highest chance, but still, far from certain. What else was likely?
A 1-1 draw was the next most likely, occurring in 10% of the simulations.
20% for a draw, okay.
Then a 1-0 home win for Austin FC was third at 9.64%.
Right.
And a 1-2 away win for LAFC was fourth most likely at 8.17%.
Interesting. So even though all the main models pointed to an away win, the simulations show that a 1-1 draw and even a 1-0 home win are still very much possibilities.
Absolutely. And that's the power of Monte Carlo. It takes the core prediction, but layers back in the inherent randomness.
Yeah.
It shows you the spectrum of likely outcomes, not just the single most likely point. It gives you that granular insight needed for, say, betting strategies or just understanding the real range of possibilities.
Wow. That really paints a complete picture.
It aims to, yeah.
So let's recap. You've just taken this incredible deep dive with us into the world of modern sports prediction. It's pretty amazing stuff.
It is complex, but fascinating when you break it down.
We started with just the basics, right? Match details, who's injured. Then we layered on the dynamic ELO ratings to gauge team strength.
Then into the statistical engine room with Poisson regression for expected goals.
And then that bootstrapping technique to really get a handle on the uncertainty, giving us those confidence intervals.
Right, building robustness.
Then we unleashed the AI brain trust. Random forest, XGBoost, the neural network, LightGBM, all these different angles on the data.
Each learning complex patterns.
And saw how they were synthesized by that powerful stacked ensemble model for a consensus prediction.
Bringing it all together.
And finally, simulating reality thousands of times with Monte Carlo to map out the most probable score lines and outcomes.
From basic data to a full probability landscape.
So what does this all mean for you listening in? I think it really showcases the immense power of data combined with these sophisticated algorithms.
Yeah, their ability to understand and forecast complex real-world events is just growing all the time.
It's like a shortcut to being incredibly well-informed about something sports prediction here that you might not have realized was so deeply driven by data science.
It's definitely moved way beyond punditry and gut feelings.
For sure. And, this raises a bigger kind of provocative question for me, listening to all of this. If these models can get this good, this detailed, predicting something as famously unpredictable as a soccer match, right down to score probabilities, what other areas of life, what other complex systems could be fundamentally transformed by this level of data-driven insight and forecasting precision?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The potential applications are huge.
It makes you think. What stands out to you about the potential or maybe even the limits of these incredibly powerful predictive systems? Something to mull over.